Ladies and gentlemen, I am really excited for our next guest on the show. He's a schoolmate of mine from back in the day when we were just youngsters in middle school. He's turned into a man who knows a lot about money, a lot about investing. I'm really excited to have him on and he can share his insight with you. Welcome to the show, Mr. Samuel Boggan of Entertaining Money. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, man. So, obviously, um, we've talked before, but I want for a Christ over crypto audience, I want you to give them a quick background on how you got into investing in money and and really what got you your passion going for understanding the monetary system and taking advantage of it.
Sure thing. I was introduced to financial education in college. My roommate had a copy of the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I actually thought was a romance novel. And it's a funny story. I asked him, dude, why are you reading this? I was like, why are you reading this thing, man? And he explained to me that it wasn't a romance novel, that it actually was a book on personal finance. And at the time, I was like, whatever. And I ended up seeing the book later in a bookstore when I was actually trying to develop my financial education. I read the book, and Robert Kiyosaki's number one best-selling work changed my life. And since that point, I've been trying to increase my understanding of the monetary system and essentially to become the best investor I can.
That's a great thing to try to strive for. So, in regard to entertaining money, just explain to the audience, what is the impetus behind entertaining money? What is the goals? If somebody starts following entertaining money and starts listening to what you have to say, what do you want them to gain, and what can they expect to see and understand from the monetary system?
Sure thing. Well, Rich Dad Poor Dad changed my life so much, and I knew the impact and the importance of the book. Not only that, the philosophy that I had the idea that, hey, other people have to get exposed to this. It's a must. It's a must-have. It's information that must be known. So the impetus was for me to become a marketer to expose that information and the fact that the book even existed to those who may not have been aware.
Okay, that's very good. I think just spreading information is something that we don't see enough of. A lot of people are comfortable being ignorant about certain things. What is the number one thing you would say as you've journeyed into investing and studying finance is the number one thing that most people don't know about investing or saving, but they should know?
I believe the most important thing is the actual makeup of our monetary system. Throughout the course of human history, we've had different types of schemes to exchange value, things that we need, things that we may want. That was barter, where individuals simply traded what they needed and wanted. It evolved into commodity money, gold and silver, or actually, let me back up for a sec. So several things have actually functioned as money. You're talking salt, cowrie shells, beads, arrowheads, fish hooks, beaver skins, etc. The list goes on and on. Let's see, more recently, well, after gold was the basis of our monetary system, we moved to receipt money where individuals could actually carry around paper notes and exchange that from the gold that was on reserve at a bank. From there, we went to fiat currency, where essentially our system wasn't backed by anything but the faith of our nation. And that has very important implications. And that is the fact that what we call money, which is actually a currency, loses value over time. And that is important to anybody who's holding their wealth in cash. Over time, even though it may be gradual and very slow, you actually lose your wealth. You lose your purchasing power. You may have those dollars in your account, but your purchasing power is diminishing steadily over time. So it's important to know the monetary system that actually operates.
Man, that was a ton of good information. I think the one thing I would try to keep our listeners focused on is, you said your money loses value over time. A lot of people don't think about that. They think about, well, I'm saving, I'm in a bank. Can you explain the importance of diversification of assets, and what assets retain their value over time?
Sure thing. I'll present this. So with currency, it's not wealth, because I'm sorry. let me get clear. It's a representation of wealth. So just like electricity, it must keep moving. So the currency itself doesn't retain or hold the wealth. It actually and only transfers the wealth into real things. Your real estate, your land, the buildings, your automobiles, even though people may say they're liabilities and they lose value, but still they're valuable in the grand scheme of things. So your currency is just a means to buy the things that you actually need for the sustenance of life. Now, you do have assets in other financial instruments such as stocks and bonds, but these are paper instruments, and they're also susceptible to a crashing monetary system.
Thank you for that, and that's going to lead me into my next question. Obviously, on Christ over crypto, we talk about good stewardship of investing. We got Mr. Samuel Boggan here of Entertaining Money. You can listen to this episode or any episode on iTunes. Just type in Christ over crypto there. You're also on YouTube, where you can check out our exclusive interview segments and other content as well. So just to ask you another follow-on question to the asset thing, Sam, I've been in a debate with people about cryptocurrency, and so my stance is it's a new asset class, and that it's a instrument that has value from a standpoint of, if you hold it, you actually own it. It's not like a dollar that somebody that may lose value over time. It is that instrument. Can you explain where cryptocurrencies fit into an investing portfolio, and what kind of asset are they? How would you classify cryptocurrency going forward for investors?
Sure thing. First of all, I believe the listeners have to understand that the dollar is an instrument of debt. And that's important to the discussion on cryptocurrencies, because our system of debt, where debt must be increased and expanded, can only go on for a certain amount of time. And the Federal Reserve actually tells you and publishes that the dollar has approximately 4% of its purchasing power left. So what this means in layman's terms is that the dollar debt system is coming to an end. So of the quadrillions of dollars in sloshing cash floating around the world economy, in addition to the derivatives that exist, that wealth has to be transferred into something. And you have experts, I'm not an expert, but you have experts who have the strong opinion that one of those some things is going to be cryptocurrency. So you can consider cryptocurrency not so much as a commodity, see it as a sponge that is going to absorb the hyperinflation from the old dollar debt system into this new system of making transactions in the global economy. So it's not so much a commodity, it's a bona fide new system of transactions.
Man, that was a great point right there. I think that is something that, like I said, I've really been a big proponent of cryptocurrency because of that nature that you just said about it being almost being kind of a sponge, a place where, like you said, wealth will be transferred, and a lot like how gold and silver was transferred, back in the 70s, when people don't realize when IRAs were first opened up in 1974, the value of price of gold quadrupled in that year that they opened self-directed IRAs. People could invest in gold once it was taken off the dollar. So I think it's possible that, a similar situation, cryptocurrencies could be a sponge for that. So I thank you for that great insight. Let me ask you a couple more questions. I'm gonna get you out of here. You mentioned debt a few times. Some people don't understand what debt means. Can you explain how important it is to not be in debt when a financial crisis hits, and the ramifications of being in deep debt when the dollar, say, loses a value or something, crazy happens in the economy?
Well, if an individual or a business is not able to service the debt payments, it's a bad situation, because as the broad economy slows, you have to understand that the velocity of money, that is the rate at which money is utilized and transferred in the system, as that slows, that means your profits also suffer. So in very simple terms, if you're not making any money, that is, if you're not making profits or the profits to service your debt, it comes to a point to where, just like it's similar to dominoes in a line, one falling domino affects the next, and so on and so forth. So if you don't have a cash reserve and you're not prepared to essentially deplete your cash reserve, most likely your business will suffer and meet its end, or the individual for that matter.
Wow. So that's interesting you say that. So a lot of people look at countries like Venezuela and India, where they've had cash systems go awry, hyperinflation. It's been very hard to get goods there because the price is so expensive. A lot of people think that situation can't happen in America. Do you think, what do you say to the listeners or the people out there who say, there's no, yeah, that sounds good, all the stuff you're saying sounds great, but this is America, we got the dollar, everything will be fine, it's backed, it's backed by oil, petrodollar, we're good. What would you say to refute their claims about the dollar or the stability of it?
Sure. I would say that in the history of mankind, there have been thousands and thousands of currencies, and they've all completely gone to zero. You're talking great nations such as Rome. It met its fate from essentially running the mint to oblivion. Not only that, historically speaking, we've had currency crises in the United States before. The Continental is one example. So we've had currencies within the U.S. to actually completely devalue. So it won't be the first time. And what most people have is a normalcy bias, coupled with the fact that they don't understand how the debt system actually works, and that there is a limitation to the amount of debt that can be created out of thin air.
Wow, that was really, there is a limitation to the amount of debt that can be created out of thin air. I want you guys to hang on that for a second. The last thing, get you a couple, like I said this a couple questions ago, but I really am going to hold to it this time. Couple more questions. One is, let's say somebody's listening to this podcast, they're saying, okay, wow, I'm blown, my mind's blown open. I just swallowed the red pill. I'm looking at everything. How can they get started to secure their financial future in this monetary system, knowing, not having even gotten started, just hearing this interview today, what is give them 2 or 3 things they can do to help lighten the burden of a failing monetary system?
Sure thing. Well, number one, I can't provide financial advice because I'm not licensed to. But broadly speaking and generally speaking, what occurs in the act of a dying currency is that it's losing purchasing power. So it's losing value, and the things around you become ever increasingly expensive. As you can take an example from Venezuela and Argentina right now, but more precisely Venezuela, the bout of hyperinflation, where the cost of goods and services are rising meteorically. So the issue that the person is dealing with is that their cash is going to lose value. It's going to take more and more dollars to buy the same amount of goods and services. Throughout the course of history, what the savvy individuals have done is they exit out of the dying currency and they enter into the new currency. Historically speaking, that used to be gold and silver, but due to the advent of computer technology, we now have cryptocurrencies. As a matter of fact, the cryptocurrency blockchain system is being built out in preparation of this transition. So you're talking all of that previous wealth flowing out of the dollar into the cryptocurrency and blockchain system. So the wise thing to do is to get out of the dollar as quick as you can. And it is a balancing act. I understand that people still have to cover the cost of living from month to month, but you have to take the necessary steps to transition into this currency this currency system that's being birthed, because there's going to be a wealth transfer. And as we've seen before, the wealth transfer is very significant. A lot of money is going to be made, as well as a lot of destruction to individuals who are unaware.
Wow, that was good, man. Like I said, I could keep asking you questions all day, but we don't have that much time. But I may have you come back on.
No worries.
For the listeners out there, how can they connect with you? Let's say they heard what you're saying, like, man, I want to know some more about this, what this guy's saying. Where can they connect with you and get some of your resources that you were talking about today?
Absolutely. I'm online at www.entertainingmoney.com. I'm also on Instagram at entertainingmoney.
There you have it, man. Mr. Entertaining Money host Samuel Boggan. Man, thank you so much for joining the show and sharing your insight. I hope you guys really got a lot of that, Sam. Thank you for coming on again, and we'll definitely have you on again soon.
Hey, Frank, thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.